Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and the all of everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. You ready? This is your host, Miss La. Let's do this. Hello, Ignite Intimacy community. This is Miss Laura Aisha, and I'm thrilled to be here live and direct in the flesh with Gina Marie. What's up, Gina?
Oh, lots.
Yeah. Looking forward to getting into that. We're actually in a studio here, Pro Media in New York City.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the invitation.
Square.
Times Square. We're in the heart of it, like the thick of it. I avoid this part of town as much as possible. But, you know, it's cool to come here because it's like, oh, yeah, there's like, this is a huge part of New York. So this is really fun because I mostly record this podcast out of my home studio. I use that term loosely. And so it's so great to like be in here. And we've got, you know, an audio engineer that's recording this episode. What's up, Keith? And yeah, thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome.
Great. So Gina Marie and I have a mutual friend, colleague in common, Russell Ward, the Confluence. And he was like, I was in LA a couple of weeks ago and I was just asking him, who do you know? Who could I need some leads. I want to interview some new people. And he literally was like, send an email in like 3 seconds to you. So he was like, you need to connect with Gina Marie, which is, yeah. And
awesome.
Here we are. Yeah. 2 weeks later. That's how we're doing it. So, all right. We talked about, well, you've got a really interesting story, which we're going to get into. But one of the things that we talked about, especially with, okay, right, like we know that sexual harassment and sexual abuse, sexual trauma is pretty much as old as humans are, right? Like it's been around forever. And so there's been this movement, the Me Too movement, that started online a couple of weeks ago with regards to this Harvey Weinstein thing. The going on, just like, you know, this, a lot of prominent actresses coming out about different abuses and attempts that they've experienced with this man who wielded a considerable amount of power in the entertainment world, right? So you had shared with me a bit about, you know, the work that you do with regards to sexual trauma and healing sexual trauma and whether it was straight, you know, sexual abuse as a child, or maybe you're drunk at a party and you black out or you pass out, or you're just totally oblivious and someone's touching you inappropriately or, you know, coercing you into something, and where you might not think that it's sexual trauma, but it actually is. It can hold that energy in your body, right? Mm-hmm. So Gina, I'd love to just know more about your background, more about how did you get into this work? I mean, you've been doing this work for 15, 20 years, right? Like before it was kind of a thing. And share with us just your journey in life and kind of what inspired you to enter into this space.
Okay. Well, the entering into this space, it pretty much found me. It wasn't something that I woke up one morning and said, I am going to work in the field of sexuality and work with people around sexual trauma. And so it's been an accumulation of my own personal journey. When I was in my third year of college, I went to South America for the year. And I always thought, like, you follow the blueprint of you go to college, get married, have kids, work, retire. And I met someone on that journey who inspired me to travel the world and to, you know, figure out how to make money outside and be creative. And so I came back to college, graduated from college, and just set off around the world. Wow. And followed my calling, like my heart. And so when I wanted to study meditation in India, because I heard about this teacher, I would go there. And if I need to do something in South America again, I follow that. And when I was in India the first time, it was the last 2 weeks, I was there for 6 months, and the last 2 weeks, I stumbled upon this sign that said Tantra Yoga. And I walked in there, and that's where my journey started in the field of Tantra. Wow. And at that time, I didn't know I just felt the word. I didn't know what it meant. And so over the course of the last 16 years, I have studied a lot in that field. And I know in the West, they think Tantra means sex. But the Tantra and the lineage that I come from is a whole accumulation of like your lifestyle, how you breathe, how you eat, and integration. So that's how that path started for me, around learning about sexual energy and how to harness the most powerful energy you have. And in that journey, that's how I've now recently gotten into working with people around their sexual stress and sexual trauma.
That's amazing. So yeah, it sounds like I was reading your story on your website just about your journey into yourself, right? And so share a little bit about that with us, just your search and your seeking around the globe.
Yes. So, I was, young and like, well, I'm still young, but, but, in college or right after college. And I had this deep, like, calling to learn and absorb anything to do with spirituality and the esoteric world and yoga. And after, 11 years of that, the search started to, it was almost like the search was, how do I describe it? Like the search was taking over me being present in the moment. And I was like, okay, this is going to be my ticket to freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll meet this teacher and then I'm going to be free. This person will be, I'll be free. And so finally I started to notice that I was getting depressed and a bit upset and sad at different moments. And I was really paying attention to that. And I was like, oh, wait, like, something popped inside of me one day. I was like, everything's inside. I just have to, slow down, have trust, faith. And it's all about fulfillment. Like, what lights me up? What fulfills me? And that's where I got very clear that it's to serve people and to support them in their process of their freedom and their awakening.
I love that. Oh, gosh. It's like I can relate to this, like the seeking, like there's something missing. There's some like, piece that I need that's going to fill the gap, that's going to make me whole. That's been a big part of my journey in life. And then just realizing like, oh, I am whole. Yeah. It's like, and I mean, traveling around the globe and experiencing all these different things, it's like that's some of the greatest spice of life. It's, that journey. However, what really struck me was that, you realize that you're jumping from country to country and thing to thing and people to people. And then all of a sudden you realize that, that's taking you out of like your desire to seek and learn and grow is actually taking you out of being present in your life, and so it all serves a purpose. I mean, I believe one of the greatest education you can get is traveling the globe.
Yeah.
So you worked with quite a lot of shamans as well, right? In different places, because I know part of the work that you do is in leading sacred rituals. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I really love to bring people together and create a space that we can all be very present with each other, and through breath, through sound, and through movement, bring us back into the body and remember what it's like to be in the body and just be with each other. So I love to lead different rituals. I lead like a modern day puja. So puja, is a word from India, but I lead more of a modern day experience of that. And
what is it? What is a puja?
Well, a puja, it's a ritual. It's an offering. So, but in India they have in very sometimes strict regular rules of how it goes, and so I like to say modern day. Yeah, because I'm not trying to be Indian in that way. I respect the lineage and the culture, and I also know that I live in the West, and there's people that we have a different mentality of how we look at different rituals and stuff over here.
Oh yeah. Well, and are some of those more around the sacred sexual and relationship area, or are they different types of rituals?
They're all different types.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
For sure.
So as far as, because you're a relationship and sex coach. So talk to us about how you work with people. I know a lot of it leans towards sexual trauma, but give us some insight on that.
Yeah. So I always work with people just connecting to them and connect in that moment and see where they're at and take it from there. It's not that I have some predispositioned, formula per se. I have a huge toolbox. I've studied a lot with a lot of teachers and masters, and I've studied on myself, and everything I've done on myself, then I will share with people. Not everything I've done on myself, let me rephrase that. But I am integrated, and I've experienced a lot of different experiences in the field of, of the awakening and your spirituality and sexuality. So I bring that to the table, and I'll pull from my toolbox and treat the person as an individual.
Yeah.
And see what's coming up. Everyone has different desires, different pasts, different, futures. So I really just connect in that moment with them. A big part of my work is working with people to clear the unconscious patterns that they have that running them, and working with the nervous system and a lot of things that we don't even know is like ruling us. So I like to go in and, almost like a heart surgeon of energy.
I love that. Yeah, let's dive into that, because I would say that one of the biggest, like the Achilles heel of humanity, one of them is this whole area around sexuality. As we relate to ourselves as sexual beings, as we relate to other people as sexual beings, all of the rights and wrongs and shame and guilt and unexpressed sexuality and all of the trauma. So you work a lot in that realm, in the realm of trauma. And when we spoke about a week ago or a couple of weeks ago, you had mentioned that, this unprocessed stuff that lives in our bodies around sexual trauma, it significantly holds us back. It impacts our relationships and pretty much everything we do in life.
Yes. Well, my take is like in the pelvic region, it's related to the voice. And so now I'll speak to the women, if we don't have our voice, or we're not speaking out for what we want or saying yes or no from a powerful place, I always go back to, okay, what's going on in the pelvic region, and that connection to the voice and that area. And so, yeah, like if we have any sort of stored sexual stress or sexual trauma, it's in the body. And, a big thing too is if it's in the body, then it lives outside of you. So what is your outer world reflecting? And so if there's, techniques to like actually get it out of the fascia and get it out of your body, or I don't even say like to get it out, like integrate that stress and trauma, so you can truly stand on your own 2 feet and feel powerful, on your own. I mean, a lot of things too that I've worked on is, when we're young, we see the Hollywood movies, and it's the the white picket fence, the knight in shining armor, and all of that. So we're up against a lot of conditioning and brainwash. And then we live that way, and then you have go through high school, and you start to have the boys and the girls, and the first time you ever feel rejected, and that's in your body. And then maybe you're 18 and some guy grabs your butt in a
bar
at a
or whatever,
or at a party,
or on the subway.
And then that affects your nervous system. So there's a lot of things at play. So even if it's not sexual stress or trauma, we are picking up things all the time. So I like to just get to the core of that and then work on unraveling those patterns and the stress, and then give people the tools that they can be powerful on their own and in whatever way they want to, live and exist.
So what have you experienced in this work with people? Like, what are some of the breakthroughs or, tools that you share that allow that integration to start happening? Because it's like we could use that energy as fuel, right, for something great and something better, and it can actually like fuel us having the most healthy, solid relationship to ourselves and others as sexual beings ever, like by actually like taking that and utilizing it.
I like to work with people and say, use your pain as your greatest gift. Use the darkness to shine light into what you want to call into your life. And so I like to like use that reference, and not necessarily like using like your pain as something bad, but and that you have to push out of you. It's actually part of what makes you who you are, and how, I support people to teach them how to use it to integrate into their mind, their body, and their spirit. So I'm all about the integration.
Yeah.
And how we can, integrate. I find that if we push things away, then we're also disowning parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big part of it. And almost like one of my mentors says, it's like use it as food.
Yeah.
Like you use your, your pain and as food for your growth. And also to, sometimes always to have like self checks and not, it's like, if I'm feeling a little bit, insecure about something, or like almost like feel like empty, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Take a deep breath into that, and then move forward from that. So there's just like little like checks you can do all the time in your day to like check in. Okay, what's going on? Oh, I'm feeling a little nervousness here. All right, let me take a deep breath into that. So it doesn't take, you have to spend 10 hours a day in silent meditation. I mean, you can use these tools and integrate throughout your day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that one. The breathe into an area of tension, or, I actually was just last week, I was like, oh, breathe into that, So like when you, just for, people who are listening, that if you're like, what do you mean breathe into that? Can you just talk us through like what that actually means?
Sure. So if you're, paying attention to yourself and you scan your body, and you notice that like part of your body, let's say it's your chest, and you feel a little nervousness there. So just pause, and then you just take a deep breath. So inhale through your nose, and as you inhale, sticking your belly out, and then just exhale through your mouth. And just notice, if you need to take a few more breaths, sometimes though, just one breath, and it can shift your whole state. Mm-hmm. And it shifts how you walk into your next meeting or getting on a phone call. So just those little self checks can support you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And like whether it's your chest or your head or your shoulder or your leg or your knee, you just focus on that part of the body as you're taking that big, deep breath in.
Yes.
And it's like allowing that breath to like expand the energy in that area, right? Because I find like when we can just like expand it and allow it to start moving, like that's where the magic happens. It's when it gets stagnant and stuck.
Yes.
Which, sexual trauma can do that, right? It can kind of get stuck somewhere. And then it starts to come out in all these weird ways.
Yeah.
And maybe not weird, but usually not the most healthy ways, right? So,
and it's to be gentle with releasing the stress and the trauma from your body. We don't have to have these big, major aha breakthroughs. You can just slowly, unravel the stress, and even these through breath, through sound.
Yeah,
through
breath is so powerful.
Yes.
So emotional cord cutting. Talk to us a little bit about this, because I know for myself and sexual experiences and engaging with others sexually, the cord cutting piece is something that I've largely left out. And so, can you talk to us just more about that piece of it? Because I believe it's a really important part of the process of just opening yourself up to others.
Yes. So as far as in sex, or intercourse, or anytime you share with someone intimately, the cord cutting that I speak to is when you are intertwined with someone, you're picking up their energies, you're in their body, all of that. So it's important to bring it back to yourself. Bring your energy back to your body and give them back their power. So it's like, I take back my power, I give you back your power. So you then can go on with your day, and you're not in this linked sort of messiness. I think a lot of times when we are intimate with someone sexually, and then we can, for women, we can be the oxytocin, and we're like, what's going on? Our world flips upside down. We're totally in love. And if we could just use, simply just bring it back. I give back the power to him. I take back my power. And then you can then have a totally different experience. So sometimes I even will go to the extent, of you take your hand and physically cutting through the air. You don't need to do that, but just cutting the link. And it doesn't mean you're not going to have a relationship with that person or you're still not going to be close. It's actually really empowering because you're giving back their power and you're taking back your power. So then when you see each other the next time, or you get together, it's like two new people coming together without those like the stickiness and the links.
I love that.
So, and that's around sexuality, but I also will do that with people with any type of relationships, with a job, with family members. And it's just clearing, it's like, cutting through like the stickiness to each person to take back their own power. So it can be done in, not just in a sexual relationship, in all areas of life.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm going to remember that one. Because I'm just like sitting here thinking, wow, okay, I could cut there. I could cut.
And it's not like and like I said, I like to reiterate that it's not that you're cutting off the relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you come back even closer and stronger.
Yeah. Well, and so how do men get kind of, like, I feel like there's such an emphasis on women and in sexuality and like, in all different aspects of dating and being sexual and being more connected to your pleasure and your body and your own sexuality. And I am starting to see more focused on men. But I feel like men kind of get maybe left out of the mix a little bit. And I understand that you do quite a bit of work with men.
Well, I find that men, they're like growing up, you're told they're not to cry, you have to be tough, you hide your emotions. And so as there's a big movement around women and women's empowerment, if we don't support the men, who are we going to date? Who are we going to have babies with? Like, what's going to happen to, And also to just like, I like to really work, when I work with men, to really see them with a lot of compassion and hold their hearts and feel their hearts. And so many times they don't have that experience in life. And it's the grind and it's the hustle. And how can how can I offer a different level of support for them to be able to open up and to cry if they need to and express their fear and just really hold that space for them to, be who they are.
Yeah. What have you discovered there?
Sometimes, they're even more sensitive than women. We're sensitive and we have our, emotions, but like the men too, they have feelings, and they get nervous and they get sad. And, it's different sometimes, but it's also, they have a lot of things going on. And, as far as also like sexual stress and sexual trauma, they have a lot of that too.
Yeah. And
it's interesting to work with them.
Yeah,
it's an honor.
Oh, I'm sure. I recently had Dustin Garrick on. Dustin,
yes.
And so we were talking about the Evolved Masculine program and the work that he's doing with men, which is amazing. And it's, I've felt some grief, I think, just around how men, there's like this story that men should have it all figured out. And they're the breadwinners, they're the protectors, they're the go down the list of assumptions about what men should be or supposed to be or whatever. And then it's like, at the core, men are human beings with emotions and needs and insecurities and, all of that. And now that I've, been on planet Earth for, a couple of, I guess, generations worth of time, I'm just starting to realize that when I get kind of like a reaction from a certain man or, I'm experiencing something, I just remember he's just a human being and he's probably insecure. And like maybe you intimidate him. I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's just an interesting exploration. So how do we begin to heal sexual trauma, when we're not even aware that we've experienced any specific type of trauma?
Right. Well, that's what my I'm working on a project around. And I feel
so sort of like the subconscious or like the
yes.
Yeah.
For example, it's one thing if you know that you were, 10 years old and you remember being raped, or then there's another thing if you haven't necessarily been raped, but you still have some sexual stress in your body, or you had sex with somebody when you fully didn't want to. I mean, how many times have women said yes? It wasn't, they weren't being forced, but they were like, there's this place inside of me that I really don't want to do this, but I'm in the moment and I don't want to upset him, or I don't want to, cause any friction, or I want to be cool.
Or I want to be safe.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want this guy to freak out on me.
Right.
Or force me. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I've been there.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you just go with it and you leave your body in a way. You can kind of check out and you're like, okay, I'm just going to go with the motion, and so that can create stress in the body. And that can, I mean, in my opinion, it can shift also who you're going to be attracted to in the future, how you're going to be around men, because it's not that you said, oh, I'm actually in this dangerous situation per se, but your body can register it as that. So that's the conversation that I'm interested in bringing out, because so many of us are walking around with this stress without even knowing it. And so what I'm finding is like actually through different practices to release it from the body is that can be done at home. That's not, that's safe, because you don't want to open up someone too fast and their nervous system can't handle it. And then they go into like major, major breakdown.
Yeah.
So that's what a project I'm working on actually with my friend Christopher around. And we are creating a whole 10-step process that will be available to people all over the world that they can do, from their home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, it was interesting because I have considered myself very blessed to have avoided some potentially like really scary, harmful, maybe even like, I don't know, deadly situations. When I was younger, I left home at 16. I was, living, I was traveling around following the Grateful Dead. And even before that, I was a young lady that was very adventurous and curious. And I was engaging with guys that were at that time in my early teens, like way too old for me to be engaging with. And definitely there were some circumstances where I was just like, I remember thinking, what the hell was I thinking? Okay, just mind what the situation is right now, because this could be precarious. Like, you're in a precarious situation right now. Like, so just, and then I had this experience when I was on tour and I was traveling around with a bunch of people, and the man that we were traveling with was much older than most of us. And I had this experience with him one night, and I never, I guess I just didn't even consider it any like sexual trauma or anything like that. But as I started to just hear different people's stories and hear, and do my own deep dive into, healing the soul and just, collecting all the parts of me that I left out, elsewhere, I just realized like, okay, this is sexual trauma. I was like, I wasn't even awake to give consent, right? So it's like there are so many different ways that we can experience sexual trauma that we may overlook or downplay because, I wasn't raped and I wasn't, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. But it's like, if you're walking down the street or you're in the subway or you're at a party and someone that you, first of all, like anyone that's going to like grab your ass or touch you in an inappropriate way or grab your pussy like our president, that is sexual assault. It's, it needs to be recognized that just a behavior like that that is not as extreme as sex, but it has an impact on the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find it's relative because that someone could be walking in the subway and someone grabs their ass, or it could be someone that they see at a party and they're, touching their whole body. Or it could be someone who's with a man and doesn't really want to have sex, but goes with it. So just to not have any, cause any problems. I feel like it's all relative because it still affects your body and your nervous system.
Yeah.
And the way you'll register what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you store it somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it'll show in your life somehow, somewhere down the line, if it's the partners you choose, if it's how you work around money with your career, your children. So yeah, I find that's it's an important aspect of this conversation that gets overlooked a lot.
Mm-hmm. And how do people start to what would be just step 1 and 2 to acknowledging this and then beginning to work with it?
Mm-hmm. I would say to, if this is sparking something in someone, and they're like, oh, wait, this happened to me. It would be to, reach out to get support, find a really good resource, even a mentor or someone that you can work with around the process in the beginning, just to offer your, so you can get like the proper help and support. There's a lot of great, books out there also. There's this huge movement now around Me Too. So there's a lot of different support groups. My only thing is to make sure that who you're listening to, is to see, like, are they living the life that I want? Are they in alignment with what I truly want? I always find when women listen to other women to get dating advice, like I've had my girlfriends say, oh, well, my girlfriend said to not talk to him, to cut off from, don't text him for these, this amount of time. And I said, well, how's her relationship in her life? Where did she learn to be in relationship? Is she in relationship? Who are you taking the advice from? So I just say be very discerning of who you're going to listen to, because this is not about like a war that we need to get into of the sexes.
Yeah.
It's not like that women are better than men or we need to like bash the men. This is how can we create harmony on the planet? And that starts within us and then us taking action to help other communities, other people, to support them, in my opinion. So I think that's very important to like really pay attention, be discerning who you're going to get the support from.
Yeah.
And the different groups, you don't want to be part of there's a lot of different Facebook groups around the Me Too that are really bashing, the other sex, like the men or the women. So.
Yeah. Well, and what do you think about the Me Too movement? Is it helpful? Is it, I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great that people, anytime we can use our voice and share. And I also, find it very important too, like I said, to like listen to who we're listening to, really paying attention to that. It's not about us creating more friction per se with the opposite sex. It's okay, we're bringing this darkness into the light. How can we illuminate that? How can we create more harmony truly between men and women, between people on the planet? Because I do really feel that like if we can get over the dynamics that we have and like between the men and women, or in relationships in general, even if it's men and men, women, however it is, that it can, we can create the world that we all really, a lot of us know is possible. Totally.
That we actually desire to live in. Yeah. I mean, I think the Me Too movement is powerful, and it's shocking, but not really, how many of us have been, on the other end of sexual trauma and just dealing with it, and for everyone who isn't even sure, like, was that or wasn't it? And it starts to become really confusing. So I know it's been powerful for me to see people posting and sharing, and especially Dustin actually shared about some stuff that he experienced. And so it's really awesome to see the men chiming in too. Yeah. And I have not posted my Me Too, and that's something that I'm committed to doing. I've actually, honestly, I've kind of avoided it. I don't know why. I got a little bit like, first of all, I've been really focused on so many things right now that I didn't want to just post it and have it be like just to get it out there, right? So I'm just sitting with it, and as it feels like, okay, like this is something that I'm moving towards, I'll put it out there. However, this is my Me Too, right now. Like this is me acknowledging that, yes, I have experienced sexual trauma in different ways, and just from little things like, and not little things, but the first time that I had sex, it was over a weekend, and on Monday at school, all these people knew about it. And I just remember being horrified. Yes. Like, I remember the moment in the hallway when someone said something to me, and down at the other end of the hallway was the guy that I had sex with, and I can still feel the energy in my body, So we'll need to talk about that.
Yeah. And it's beautiful that, you can start to have a voice around that, and that people are able to speak out about this subjects that are so taboo.
Yeah.
We
have to.
We haven't been, like 10 years ago, you wouldn't mention a lot of this stuff. So it's actually, I think it's positive and beautiful that people can start to use their voices. And I think it's just the beginning of the whole process.
Yeah. I agree. Well, so where can people find you online? Because you've got some really cool programs on your website, and you're into some other stuff as well. There's like a breakup.
It's called Renew Breakup Boot Camp.
Okay, yeah. So you're into some really cool stuff. Where can people find you online?
They can find me at btwginamarie.com.
Okay.
And the Renew Breakup Boot Camp is at renew.com. And that's my friend Amy Chan started that, and there's a few of us, and she, a few weekends in the year, she brings women together for this powerful experience that we co-facilitate. And where else? They can find me on Instagram, but I don't really post yet, but I'm going to start.
Awesome.
It's Gina Marie 114. Yeah. Yeah, I've been working mostly word of mouth for the last 15 years.
Awesome.
So this is the year that my voice is going to come out.
Oh, I love it. Wow, that's pretty incredible, though. I mean, just working word of mouth.
Yeah.
And I love how you shared somewhere I read that you said something, or maybe we were talking about it this morning, but how like, you've worked with all of these incredible healers and shamans and people around the world who don't care, who like don't want to be online.
They don't, or they're not even. They're just working on people.
Yeah.
I have an incredible network of these amazing humans that are really doing the work. Really wanting to support people and being free. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and then there's just this one last piece about like what we learned from our family of origin, right? About sex and sexuality and how that impacts us.
Yes,
as we grow.
Yes, I mean that's a huge one. How many people have had their families talk about sex, or what was the example of a relationship did you see in your household? And then we are going out in the world and we're just kind of fumbling, like trying to like piece it together. And, I believe we all want the same things. We all want connection. We all want to feel close. We want to be seen. We want to be able to be ourselves with someone else. And so, where did we learn that from? What were the examples in our life? And like, yes, but our sex education was our health teacher saying, wear a condom. This is STDs.
Oh yeah, totally. I don't even know if they went that far in my school.
I think they showed us pictures of STDs, like, And, that was that. I feel now, though, there's a bit more education that's coming out and more talking. And
just with like YouTube and you can
it's a different world.
Yeah,
I didn't have the internet.
Yeah, no, we were around the same age, so we didn't have, the internet when we were growing up.
Right.
And the extent of the conversation in my house was don't have sex until you're married.
Right.
And you don't get divorced. Like that was like, it was like, and I was terrified. And I've never been the type of woman that was like, I'm going to get married and it's going to be like this big thing. And I think I was always kind of like, oh my God, maybe that's why I'm still single. But anyways, that's partly a choice too. But yeah, so much goodness here. Yeah, it's like just doing the deep dive, going in and exploring all of this stuff and just starting to peel back the layers so that we can have the fullest expression and be the fullest expression of who we're here to be in this life, right? Because like with all this stuff in the way, it's like we're walking around as like a quarter or a half of who we're actually really supposed to be, or maybe even an eighth. Right. So I really I trust that this has inspired our audience today, Ignite Intimacy community. We've just so grateful to have people listening from all over the world. And it's cool because I'm, as I'm doing some traveling and speaking with different friends and stuff, people tell me like, I tune into your podcast. Like, oh, I got this, I listened to that episode and, it was like, it totally, gave me the fuel to like do this thing or talk to my partner or, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm so happy to be here with you in person.
I know.
So, okay, Gina Marie, it's btwginamarie.com. It's kind of like, by the way, Gina Marie, but it's B as in boy, T as in Tom, W, GinaMarie.com. We'll have her links in the show notes. And it was so great to have you today.
Thank you so much. Yay.
So much fun. Okay, cool. Ignite Intimacy. You heard it here. If you have any questions, you want to check in, you want to say hi to Gina or I, email us at hello@igniteintimacy.com. And please hop over to iTunes. Leave us a review and a rating because the more of you that do so, we will get more people listening to this podcast. And we're just so, so grateful for you joining us week to week. And we'll see you soon for the next one. So until then, stay blessed and ciao for now. Give thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out online at igniteintimacy.com and subscribe to us on iTunes. Also, tell your friends all about it. This beautiful music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey. And this podcast is produced by yours truly, Miss La. Give thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.